The ancient mountains of Skullheart Island had witnessed storms, volcanic eruptions, and the rise and fall of countless creatures over millions of years. But today, the island was holding its breath. Every stone, every leaf, every heartbeat in the jungle felt the tension growing beneath the surface. High above the treetops, in the deep heart of this forgotten land, lived the legendary giant, King Kong, the last guardian of a world untouched by time. His presence alone kept the jungle in balance. Creatures respected him, rivers flowed around his territory, and even the strongest predators avoided crossing paths with him. Kong was not just a beast. He was a protector, a force of nature, a walking reminder of ancient power and ancient responsibility. But far below the earth, buried under layers of roots and ruins, something else was awakening. Something far older than Kong himself, a creature whispered about in the island's forgotten history. The Titan Python, a monstrous serpent whose body could crush trees and whose breath could silence the entire jungle. For centuries, the Titan Python had remained sealed beneath the land, sleeping in a world of darkness. But now, the earth trembled, cracks formed in the ground, birds fled in massive clouds. Even the volcano seemed restless. Change was coming, and Skullheart Island was preparing for a battle of titans. Deep in the jungle, as Kong watched over a herd of migrating animals, he sensed the shift. The wind felt wrong. The air carried a heaviness he had felt only once before, long ago, in a distant memory of chaos and fire. The jungle suddenly fell silent. Animals froze. Even the waterfalls seemed to pause. From beneath a cracked cliffside, the Titan Python finally emerged. Its scales glistened like molten iron. Its eyes burned with a cold, ancient hunger. Its body stretched farther than the roots of the tallest tree. The earth shook with every movement, and for the first time in decades, Kong growled, not as a warning, but as a challenge. What followed was not just a clash of strength. It was a clash of survival, destiny, and the eternal battle between light and darkness. The Titan Python struck with incredible speed, its enormous jaws snapping like a boulder breaking apart. Kong dodged, the ground cracking under his weight. He slammed his fist into the serpent's side, sending shockwaves across the valley. But the python coiled around a massive boulder and slid onto a higher ridge. Its eyes locked on Kong like a predator studying its prey. The jungle watched with fear. Every creature hid, knowing this was not a fight between monsters. It was a fight that would decide who ruled the island. The python lunged again, this time capturing Kong's arm in a vice-like grip. Its coils wrapped around him, squeezing with terrifying strength. Bones groaned under pressure. Trees snapped like twigs. The entire valley shook from the force. For a moment, Kong dropped to one knee. It looked like the end, but deep inside, something awakened in him. Not anger, not fear, but purpose. Kong remembered every creature he had ever protected, every young life he'd shielded, every battle he'd fought, not for himself, but for the jungle that depended on him. And from the depths of his soul, strength surged. Kong planted his fist into the earth, pushing himself up. The python's coils tightened, but Kong's resolve tightened more. He roared, not just a roar, but a declaration of survival. With a sudden burst of power, he broke free. The Titan Python reared back, stunned. Kong seized the moment, lifting a massive tree trunk fallen nearby. He spun with all his force, striking the serpent with a blow that echoed across the mountains. But the python wasn't defeated. It struck again, wrapping its enormous body around Kong's torso and neck, dragging him toward the riverbank where its strength would multiply. The water churned violently as the two giants clashed, waves rising, trees uprooting, rocks splitting apart. Kong began to sink under the serpent's crushing grip. The jungle seemed to dim. The air grew colder. The world itself seemed to whisper, "Give up." But heroes never give up, not when the world needs them, not when responsibility calls their name. With fading breath and fading strength, Kong placed his hand on the riverbed, gathering the final reserve of power inside him. He surged upward with a force so great it sent water erupting skyward. He grabbed the Titan Python's head. For a moment, everything froze. Then, with a thunderous roar that shook the clouds, Kong slammed the serpent into the ground. Once, twice, a final time. The Titan Python fell still, its enormous body collapsing like a defeated shadow, returning to the earth. The skies parted. Light spilled through the jungle canopy. The wind picked up again, carrying new life with it. Kong stood tall, exhausted yet victorious. The jungle slowly emerged from hiding, birds returning to the branches, small creatures crawling out, waterfalls roaring back to life. Kong had saved them all. But the story doesn't end in the battle. The real message lay in the struggle itself. Because every giant, whether made of muscles or made of spirit, faces moments where the world tries to squeeze the life out of them. Moments where responsibilities feel too heavy, where problems wrap around you like unbreakable coils, where giving up feels easier than fighting back. Yet even in the darkest moments, courage is born, strength rises, and heroes are forged, not by victory, but by refusing to surrender. Kong walked back into the jungle, not as a conqueror, but as a guardian who understood that true strength isn't measured by size, it is measured by heart. And that is the lesson of the ancient giants. No matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how heavy the pressure, a brave heart will always rise.